Hey everyone, welcome to today's Love Transformation class. Now, one of the things I hear thrown out a lot is this idea of this conscious man. And I think we all really desire to have a next level relationship, or you probably wouldn't be here, right? But I'm super excited to have a chat today and download some really, really insightful wisdom to help you on your journey to create a conscious relationship. And that is, how do we find a conscious man? Welcome, Natasha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off by defining what it is a conscious man is. How would you describe him? What is it about him that might make him fall into this category of being a conscious partner?
I love that question. So, to me, I think of a conscious man as somebody who's like spiritual, like they have something about them where they're innately spiritual. They might not even be the kind of man that's like very much in the new age or like into all that or really understand the vocabulary, but there's just something about him where he's really grounded and present and calm, and like his energy is just so magnetic in a way because he just exudes that kind of presence, you know what I mean? And he's like integrated with his divine feminine. So he's a conscious man as someone who's like, yeah, so spiritually awakened. He stands for family, for faith, for freedom. And he's a protector, he's a provider, he's a leader.
What is it that we imagine that we're going to feel like? What is it that we imagine about this relationship with the conscious man that's different?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I want to share a little bit about my story because this will tie in really well. So in the past, when I was 21, I was like, I'm gonna call him my twin flame, whatever. I was kind of stuck in that new age stuff. And at the time, I had called in this like twin flame experience, and I thought this was the one, like, and I was stuck in that loop for years, and it was just totally deception. And now coming out of that, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Because he was just a blue pilled beta boy bitch. He wasn't like a strong masculine man. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a provider. And it was my own inner masculine that he was reflecting. So I had a very wounded inner masculine. And then so I called in a man who also had a very wounded masculine, who wanted me to be in my masculine and he wanted to be in his feminine. It was a very strange like dynamic that happened where, yeah, so what I noticed was men who are not in their purpose, don't feel like they have their purpose, are a bit lost, so they're attracted more to masculine women, whereas men who are in their purpose want to lead and guide the woman, right? So that was what had happened. I had called in a man who wasn't really in his purpose because I wasn't really in mine either. And this strange dynamic happened. And now, as I've been initiating in this inner masculine alchemy and like really building my inner masculine and working on this inner union between my masculine and feminine, I'm a match to completely different men, like men who are more of that king, who are in their purpose, because I'm also in my purpose now, who are leading me, guiding me. And I can just relax and I can be in my feminine. And the reason why that's happening is because of my internal union between my own inner masculine and feminine energies, because it's my inner masculine that has been exalted. So now in my outer reality, that's what I'm experiencing in men. Does that make sense? It's like as within, so without. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you just share with the girls, when you say you had an unhealthy inner masculine, like what did that look like in the relationship? How were you showing up? How was that manifesting as far as your
Oh
behavior?
yeah. So I was just the unhealthy masculine or the wounded masculine can manifest in so many ways, but it's like you'll attract men who they they're not really leading you, they're not guiding you, they're not very protective, they can be very abusive, they can ghost, they can be really wishy-washy. And in your own life, like for example with work, like you can really be in these toxic patterns of like overdrive and like hustle, and like you just can't relax and just be in your feminine, and it's very hard to attract a masculine man in that way. You're really repelling the masculine energy that you want. So that's kind of what it looks like, whereas with the healthy masculine, it's just a complete opposite. It's like he wants to lead you, he wants to guide you, he wants to protect you and provide for you, support you, take care of you, and you can relax and be in your feminine and just like appreciate him, admire him, and then that exalts him even more because men love to be appreciated and respected, and they love to feel needed and like they have purpose. and like they're making you feel good. So it's just the energies are reversed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I know one way that that showed up for me in my relationships when I was very much in my masculine was kind of over functioning. It was like, and maybe came across as controlling even. So sort of organizing everything and planning everything and thinking that I was really contributing to the relationship, but kind of telling him what we'd be doing on the weekend. And if we did have plans, I would sort of organize it all. And he was just really, it was like I was rowing the boat and he was just sitting in the back, leaning back, just kind of like, not resisting it, but then at times when I really needed him to lean in and be in his masculine, he wasn't, because I was kind of carrying that burden. Is that sort of like your experience as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like with a lot of boys who have like low masculine energy, they'll this is an example I love to give my clients, and it's like how to tell a boy from a man. And it's like the boy will be like, we should grab drinks. And then a man would be like, I would like to see you. I would like to take you out for dinner. Like, are you free on Friday? Do you see how like direct and clear and like that is, right? So you can feel the difference in your body as a woman. Like, we should grab drinks. Like, I feel like, are you gonna make plans? I feel a little anxious. Like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little like not grounded, right? Whereas I would like to see you, are you available for Friday for dinner? I feel really grounded. I feel really like, yes, like, ooh, I feel turned on. Like, you know what I mean? You can feel it in your body. So it's subtle, but it's such an important thing that I'm so happy I've shifted into in my journey. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such the energy of those two different questions is so different. I often use the prince and king archetypes to sort of sense, the first one, like let's grab drinks, is kind of like I'm just going to ride on in my white horse and be this really like charismatic kind of prince energy, and as opposed to a king energy, right? What can we do to, perhaps if we're meeting a guy and starting to get to know someone, early stage dating, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to meet a conscious man coming up in a sec, but I'd just sort of like to just continue to explore, like, how do we actually know? What are some of the things that we can really identify about him and the way he's showing up in those early stages that might show that he really is interested in conscious partnership, without coming straight out and asking him?
I always say this, but like if a guy likes you, he will make it known. He will make it very clear. And usually it's just allowing him to lead, but also you're pacing it at the same time as well. So he's going to know what he is looking for in a woman, right? So a lot of women are just used to attracting men who don't know what they want. They're like boys, they're low value, they just want sex. So a conscious man, like that king energy, is very different. Like he knows he wants a wife. He knows he wants um a mother for his children. He knows he wants a partner. And so he knows his values, right? He knows what his values are. And so they need to align with the woman. So a lot of women, I was telling you, like, do those men really exist though? Like, because I'm not attracting them, and they're kind of stuck in this like tunnel vision of like thinking that men only want sex and there are no good men like that. But then I look online and I see so many amazing conscious men that I just find, because first of all, my focus is on that. So I keep attracting more and more of that. But I see this amazing men that, are married, that love their wife, that, you know, put their family, their faith, their freedom first. Like, so they exist, you know what I mean? But it's about, I feel like they know what their values are, and they're really looking for a woman who has those shared values as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to actually unpack values a little bit more, because I think that's so super important. So let's put a pin in that. But I am pretty sure that a lot of the women that are watching are like, where do I find, like, from a practical perspective, where am I finding this guy? Where am I meeting him? Where does he hang out? How are we finding him in 2022?
Yeah, I love this question. I have a very different approach to answering this question. I feel like a lot of times I look online and women will give you like places to go, like go here and go there. That's really not how I approach it at all, because that's just not been my journey. My journey is more like, it's like, you make the intention of, this is the kind of person that I want to call into my life, right? And then you allow God and the divine to kind of bring him to you in the best avenue, right? So for example, like when I had called in, a previous soul connection, I felt really inspired and guided to download Bumble, right? Like well, actually first, I was healing from a heartbreak. I was doing a lot of inner work, like feminine self-discovery. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to meet, this person, the next person who's coming in to help me on my journey, who I have a soul contract with. And I felt inspired to go on Bumble. And it was really just this, I created like this opening where I was like, I am open to meeting high quality men, high value men who would love to take me out and get to know me, right? And then through that intention, he came in, right? So I wasn't really like super focused on like, I need to be with my soulmate. I need my soulmate. It was just kind of like, it would be so nice to like, go on dates with these amazing men who'd love to get to know me and take me out. And because I was so open and detached, he could come through that way. But the inspired action on my part was downloading Bumble because he was going to be on it and then we were going to match, right? So I wasn't really focused on where do I go? How do I meet him? It was just, that's kind of what the divine told me to do. And then it happened. And then I have another example because, that was like in the past. So then I have another example of meeting someone else who's more in alignment with who I am now, because I have had so much spiritual growth in my journey. And what happened was I was actually not in a good place at all. So I always thought you need to be in like the best place to meet your partner or else it won't happen. And that's totally not true because I was totally heartbroken, depressed, and like suicidal when I met him. But it was, the right time to meet him. And I remember this was in 2019. And I went out with my friend. I had no intention of meeting a guy. I was just in a really low place. But I was just like, you know what, I just should just distract myself. I should just go out with my friend. And what ended up happening was I remember being at the bar with her and I felt someone staring at me. I look over and I make eye contact with this gorgeous guy. And he's like, we just have this instant like spark, magnetic attraction, like soul recognition moment where like time stopped and like it was crazy. And I just remember walking right up to him and talking to him. And I never used to be this confident with men before in the past, but after so much work, like that's something that I had to build. And I remember just talking to him, and it turns out we have like the same mutual friends and all these, we run in the same circle. We went to like neighboring high schools, and I was like, how did that happen? Like, how did I meet such an amazing guy like out of nowhere? And it wasn't the bar. It wasn't because I went out to the bar and this is where these guys hang out. It's like, it was more my vibration or being in alignment, right? Of maybe consciously at the time I didn't know it, but my higher self was like, okay, you're going to meet this guy at this time. And then it kind of happened, right? But the energies were aligned for that to happen. So I always teach women, like, don't worry about where you need to go. Worry about like being in alignment so that you can actually, have that click where you meet and the energies are in alignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when you say being in alignment, because I know that there's lots of the girls watching that that love they're manifesting practices. And so tell us a little bit about how you were in alignment, even though you were in a bad place, and what the difference is. Because I think we often think of frequency as in, I'm loving life and everything's going really great. And then low frequency is life sucks, shitty stuff's happening at the moment, right?
So for me with this guy, I was meant to meet him at that frequency that I was at. It was like, I've kind of reached my like lowest point and I really need my higher self kind of just designed it that way in a sense. But I was so in alignment with my own divine plan that I met him exactly when I was supposed to.
And so I heard you mention about inspired action. For those that haven't heard that expression, can you just fill us in on what that actually is?
So inspired action. So you're like healing, you're doing your manifestation practices, you're listening to your meditations, you're doing all of that. And inspired action is like, there's so many ways aside from dating apps, right? Inspired action would be like download Hinge, and then you download Hinge and then you go on an amazing date with this guy. Or it could be your friend being like, oh, I have this guy I want you to meet. You go on the blind date because it feels exciting. Or you are like, you know what, I feel like applying to this job because why? I have no idea what this has anything to do with like a soulmate relationship, but you apply to the job, you get the job, lands you a new circle, and then you meet the guy in that circle, and it just starts happening. You could have an inspired action to go to Whole Foods, but a different Whole Foods that you don't usually go to randomly at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and then you bump into him, right? Like there's so many different inspired actions, but it's like by listening to your soul, to your body, and like what's exciting to you. So like my inspired action for the second guy was like, just go out with your friend. You know what I mean? Just go out with your friend. And I let her lead the way. We were just bar hopping, and that was my inspired action. And then, you know, the energies were in alignment for us to meet because of our soul contract, right? So again, yes, I wouldn't worry so much about where am I meeting men, because it could happen in all these different avenues, right? Like dating apps are just one little avenue. I listed like 5 of them. And the divine like doesn't put limits on how you're gonna meet conscious men or your partner. It's like we're the ones putting limits by being like, oh, it's pandemic, like we can only meet them online. That's not true. Like God has no limits. So he can make it happen in so many ways. Yeah.
There's going to be some people who have also felt a little bit restricted in terms of their social opportunities and meeting people. And I feel like, and I said this to a client the other day, I feel like there's some hidden gems or some beautiful men coming out of the woodwork, really feeling like it's time for them to meet someone. Is that your feeling? It's an interesting time we're in right now.
I think like the feminine as a collective has done so much work, and like we've really led the way for the masculine, and there is definitely something like happening with the divine masculine where they're like ready to be exalted and like, yeah, like you said, come out of the woodwork.
Because of what's been happening in the world, right? We're starting to really notice like this polarization of our views and our values.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to start to present some new problems. Now, you mentioned how important values are.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yes. Well, yeah, you're right. This experience that we're in right now, there are a lot of hidden gems, because I feel like now is actually the best time to be dating, because it's never been more clear, you know, where people stand and like what your own values are. Like I feel like throughout all of this, it's been really good to do this work and figure out what your own personal value system is. Whereas before it wasn't so obvious, you know, we had to like go through a lot of lessons to kind of figure that out. Whereas now it's just super obvious in your face, right? So yeah, so it's basically like, for example, if you can't go out to the bar or to the club or to the restaurants, even like we can't in DC, unless you have the vaccine pass thing or whatever, right? It's going to be really hard to meet people like it was, you know, in 2019. But in my own personal value system, I wouldn't want to date that person anyway, right? Because my values or the way that my inner masculine is he's not going to be getting the vaccine or he's not, he's going to be more aware about what's going on in the world, and our values are going to align more on this polarizing subject. And I feel like he's going to really stand for, again, faith, family, freedom, rights. And I personally don't want someone just watching CNN all day, because I don't, right? So those are my values. And I know other people have different values where they're like, how dare she? Like, I don't agree with any of that. And, you know, or like, just don't agree with that, right? Then that's great, because those are their values, and they know that the kind of partner they want is the total opposite of the kind of partner that I want, right? So it's never been more clear, essentially. So I think that this is really important. I know a lot of people are like, it's so much easier now to figure out like who is the most compatible partner for you, right? Because essentially when you're looking for a partner, when you want to be in a relationship, what you're really looking for is like those shared values, that shared vision, mutual respect, compatibility, chemistry, of course, but like those are also things that we can forget about sometimes.
Yeah, it is super interesting, regardless of what your opinions are about or your personal views are about how things are progressing in the world and how is best for us to move forward, and how personally we can make personal decisions in order to best, you know, support our desires about the way that the world is heading. I think you're right. For as much as we don't want it to be so divisive, there are ways in which we can form connections or get to understand someone else's belief system, because we have something that's so present that we can unpack with them. Either you're going to have completely opposite views, or you're going to have completely the same views. So I think it's super interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out as well. When I was at university, I worked in a matchmaking agency for a few years, and we really would pick the top 5 values of our clients and match them, try and match them as best as possible with top 5 other values. And, you know, aside from the director of that business had a 10-year rule, so we weren't allowed to match people outside of 10 years of age difference, which was interesting. But aside from age, the values was the next thing that we would ensure that we would match up on. It's so intrinsically important for anyone watching who hasn't gotten really clear on what the values that are important to them are. And I don't just mean values of like honesty and integrity, but real life things, right? When we say values, like what are the actual things that you think are important to consider?
Going on right now, it's like I'm so glad I did this work a few years ago, because it's like it just keeps refining and refining. But to me, it was always like open-minded, curious, non-judgmental, interested in like personal and spiritual growth and development. That is so important. I feel like if you have those, like it doesn't really matter what side you're on, because you're open-minded, you're curious, you're non-judgmental. Like, you know what I mean? Those are like those values that are really important to me. And that's what, because I embody that, that's what I'm going to attract in a man. Does that make sense? So if I weren't really truly embodying that, I wouldn't be so magnetic to that. So it's about knowing your values, and it's about really embodying them.
You're right. It is really important that we get clear on what our own values are and the priority of those values. So we might have a value that we like to travel and explore the world, but again, it might not necessarily be a value that's of a high priority right now. But I definitely think things like family and intentions for the future in regards to family, how much of our lives are our family involved in our lives. I think those things are important. I think our opinions about money, you know, saving versus spending. Another thing I think is really the last value that I want to touch on that's really important is the how much time we spend together versus how much time we spend apart. And it's often not what we think. You know, people that create businesses with their partner and they work together and they do lots and lots of things together, it's not always as amazing as what we imagine it might be. So more is not better and less is not better either. So just, yeah, I guess getting really clear, maybe taking some information from past relationships, but getting really clear on how would we balance that out, like each having our own individual identities, working on our own projects, having that autonomy, but also creating a future together, and how much time that would be. And I think it's definitely different for everyone, but certainly an important value too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like in the past, I really wanted someone who was more like me, maybe more introverted. And now I'm like, no, I need someone to balance out the fact that I'm introverted. I need someone who's extroverted, who's gonna like get me out of my shell, get me out of my house, because I just want to sit curled up in bed reading a book. Like I need someone who's like going to introduce me to new things outside of my comfort zone. I feel like that's just what's actually compatible for me. So in a way, like opposites attract, you know? I would have never thought about that in the past. So I think like it's so cool, like as you grow, like what you want changes, your values change, the kind of men you attract change. It's just so fascinating to go through and experience. Yeah.
So a lot of times we meet a man and he might not be in a really conscious space. He might be going through some kind of challenge with work or some mental health problem, but we can see potential in him, right? On this topic of conscious man, how do we know like that someone genuinely is conscious? You know, I guess I see that there's a tendency sometimes to believe in the potential for someone because we get to know them on a bit of an emotional level. We have some beautiful bonding experiences. We see their potential. Is that a dangerous thing? What are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts? Can a man that's not necessarily conscious become more conscious in a relationship with our loving support, or is that wishful thinking and putting him on a pedestal and falling in love with his potential?
Such a good idea, because I've experienced both. So I've experienced the whole, oh my God, he has so much potential. If only he would heal his wounds and not be a narcissist, you know? And of course that was never going to happen. And then I've also experienced like meeting someone and, you know, they have so much potential, but they do have, you know, commitment issues and like whatever things they need to work on. And honestly, if it's the person for you, if you're doing your work, then your masculine counterpart will like be notified of that, and he will also be receiving those upgrades as you awaken. This is something that I've been experiencing, where it's like it's not going to happen with every guy. Obviously it's just going to happen with your person, but if you're doing your work and you're awakening and he's really the one, he is going to go through those consciousness shifts with you. I have seen that happen before. So it's so important to surrender in a way. Like I always just do this prayer, like, God, if this is not the one, just take him out of my life, you know, because at this point I'm just done with everything else, right? So God, if he's not the one, take him out of my life, right? And if he comes back and, you know, you're starting to see that he is going through these he is awakening. Honestly, a lot of people are waking up right now, even a lot of men, like it's happening. He is awakening, he is working through his stuff. Then it might not just, it just might have been a timing issue. He could have been it, and it just wasn't a timing, it was a timing issue. But the more like you do this work and he's doing this work, you can come together. I have seen that happen. That can happen for sure. It's just important to not be attached. It's important to be detached, to understand it's always this or someone better. Oh my God, I attracted this amazing guy. He has so much potential. I would love for it to be him. But if not, I know that God in the divine is going to blow me away with like someone even better. And it will be revealed to me why this one wasn't the guy for me, right? We just don't know. So we have to have faith. We have to trust. We have to surrender. But if it is our masculine counterpart, he will raise in consciousness as we do, because it has to be that way. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that distinction. So I guess the takeaway for those listening with that is you don't have to do the work for him. You don't have to continue to hold space and wait for him to move through stuff if it's actually affecting the ability for your relationship to become more deeply connected, right? That is just falling in love with his potential.
Yeah, no, usually it's focus on yourself. If he comes back, maybe he comes back years later and it's like there was a spark there, but it just was the wrong time. You guys just weren't in the right place. But the feelings were genuine on his end, because he did come back. He wants to stay in touch. He wants to rekindle a relationship. Maybe he's grown through that time and he has done that work, and so have you. And it's just better to connect now versus then, right? So that is a potential, but always the focus should be on yourself. No holding space, no sending love, no doing any of that. Just focus on yourself and trust that as you raise your own frequency and do this work, that he is going to have to match your vibration. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to also drop right in here as well is that almost always the kind of proper relationships that we form end up becoming more evolved and a better relationship than the relationships that we've had previous, right? Mm-hmm. What that means though is the next relationship that you have, you can't always necessarily imagine what that person's going to be like, or how good that relationship is going to be, and some of those different dynamics that we've just spoken about in terms of how our lives meshing together. So just wanted to give the ladies a little bit of, I guess, confidence for those that aren't feeling that inspired about this next relationship, or especially for those that are looking at a past relationship and really feeling regretful or missing a person, is just trusting in knowing that on that path, you're always going to create something more beautiful than what you had before. It's just difficult to see that when it hasn't happened yet.
I have been there so many times. Yes, definitely. I'm really thankful that I didn't get what I wanted. And I'm just so thankful I didn't get what I wanted, because I didn't really know what I wanted. At the time, it's like really painful and hard because you're really attached to that kind of person. You just don't know how it's going to get any better, how it could get any better. You think you're never going to find someone like that again. But I always tell my clients this, it's like, it's always this or something better. It's always this or something better. And just in my journey, it's just like proven to be like the truth time and time again. Yeah.
So true, so true. I work with so many women struggling with heartbreak over a past relationship, and coming out the other side, they're just like, wow, if only I knew that this was the caliber of man that I was going to meet, and this is how I was going to feel, and this amazing it was going to be, I just would never have spent so much time feeling so down and so low and so desiring of that ex back.
I know. That's when I explained the two stories of like the two different types of men I attracted. I was like, this guy is my twin flame, and oh, I was in so much pain. He had a baby with another woman, and it triggered all my shit, obviously. And that's the yeah, I was not in a good place. And when I met this new guy, I was just like in shock that I could have this spark, this connection, this chemistry, this like magnetic attraction with someone. I just didn't think it was ever going to happen again. So it really was like, I realized, like, wow, I really don't know anything. Something amazing like that could happen. And yeah, we just have to trust and have faith on this path that, like, if you have the deep soul desire to be in union, to be with your masculine counterpart, it's meant to be, it's going to happen. Even though the journey can be so extremely painful, like I have been there. It will definitely happen if you have the soul desire for it in the divine time, of course. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, for the women who love your energy and would love to become part of your community or get involved or sort of download more of your wisdom, what are the next steps for them?
Yeah, you can join my email list where I send out like weekly love notes every Sunday, just like thoughts on love and modern dating and relationships. And yeah, you can follow me on Facebook. I have a lot of great content on there. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank
Oh, I
you.
have a free meditation. I have a free meditation. It's my divine love meditation. So that one is amazing to use every night to really like connect to your soulmate and like just start to sink into that frequency of romantic love and start becoming magnetic to him. And so that you can meet wherever you're supposed to meet. Yeah.
Thank you. The meditation is absolutely beautiful. You can find it below the video. Just scroll down a little bit, and all of the links as well under the video to get on Natasha's Love Notes list and also to connect with her over on Facebook. Any final thoughts? What would you like to leave our ladies with today?
Here's my final thoughts. So I would give like a homework assignment of like really writing out your values based on what we've talked about, and then writing about how you want him to make you feel. So this is something that I've been practicing a lot as I've been doing this work with the masculine. Like, how do you want him to make you feel? That's what's going to manifest. So this masculine man that you're calling in, is he going to make you feel seen, heard, understood, supported, like protected, provided for, taken care of? Like, is he the kind of man who like might not understand everything you talk about if you're super spiritual, but he just, you know, he's the king, so he'll listen to you anyway? And like, just how does he make you feel? I would really get so deep into that and just start to focus your energies on that, and then start to see how that starts to shift your outer reality, for sure. Instead of the whole, I don't know if this man exists, blah, blah, blah thing, like just shift the story into how is he going to make you feel? And